So you might be secretly daydreaming about making a big life change, especially these days with all the craziness going on with the economy, inflation, political unrest, social hypersensitivity. It's almost like waking up in the morning is more a dread than the dawning of a new and exciting day. And you might also be that guy who's single, lonely, frustrated with dating. And by the way, I could so easily go off in a lot of directions on that. I mean, the cost of going out on a date that might lead to nowhere has absolutely lost its appeal. And then you end up back at home alone. I know, I was there. I felt like this, I don't know, a huge disconnect between the women that I was attracted to and their complete disinterest with me. Well, I might have some good news for you. Hello and welcome back to the G5 Family channel. I hope you're having a great day. Thanks for clicking in. I wanted to do a follow-on talk from my previous discussion on escaping the chaos and deliberate on the question, will my money really go farther in the Philippines? What is the real minimum monthly cost I can get by on? Now, this idea or concept can easily apply or be relevant even if we're not talking about the Philippines specifically. There are a lot of countries we can take advantage of the lower cost of living, like Mexico, Costa Rica, Thailand is popular, as well as a bunch of other Southeast Asia countries. But my life has led me here to the Philippines, so I can speak more intelligently on the real cost involved in living here in the Philippines. I also recently shared my monthly cost of living, so I'll be referencing this list as I go through the basic necessities. And I'm also basing this on the single guy, whether you have a girlfriend or not, no kids, basically just you. All right, so let's get into it. The first item on our list would be housing or rent. Well, and if we are single, we may not want to lock ourselves into any sort of long-term rental commitments or agreements or anything like that. So I'm going to talk about a couple of options to consider. Now, I really do suggest, especially in the first days, weeks, months, I really suggest keeping your commitments limited because you might find out that you don't particularly like the area that you're living in, or you suddenly decide you want to move to a different city. Well, okay. So the Philippines offers a lot of different housing situations that cater to this lifestyle. There are a lot of options for short-term accommodations. For instance, we could check into a hostel. And pretty much anywhere in the Philippines between as low as $6, $8, $10 a night up to $20 a night. And so we multiply that by 30 days. We'll just go with the $10 model. You're at $300 a month. $20 model, you're at $600 a month. The advantage in this scenario, you won't have any utilities cost. Just basically your food, your transportation, and probably a phone. And I'll talk about that stuff next. I'm sure a lot of guys are going to object to my $300 to $600 per month scenario. But remember, that's house and utilities, lights, water, and in most cases, Wi-Fi. But you can get a room or an apartment for as low as, let's just say $100 a month. But in that case, you probably will, maybe not, but you most likely will have utilities. So you'll have the cost of electricity and water and probably Wi-Fi. As a single person, you could probably get by on, let's just say, an additional $50 for electric and water and Wi-Fi. But remember, this scenario will usually be a 6-month rental commitment. You'll have to put up a deposit of 2 months plus your first month's rent. So your point of entry will be $300 on day one. Okay, so there's 2 scenarios to consider. The cheaper monthly requires a deposit and a minimum 6-month commitment, with the other being come and go as you please, no commitment. Okay, so that's your accommodation. Let's talk food. All right, so again, if we're living loose and free, and let's say we want to keep our costs at a bare minimum, we could get by on street food. Now, you do need to be careful, but I have found street food to be kind of a simple pleasure. Not necessarily the most healthy style of eating, but it's kind of like Taco Bell in the old days. If we were low on cash, we could eat pretty good at Taco Bell. And to put that into perspective, we were out last night and we grabbed street food for dinner. For me alone, I got some nachos and a corn on the cob, yummy, yummy, and the cost was 100 pesos or about $2. So let's just use $2 as the number for this exercise. 3 meals a day, that's $6. Let's add snacks and drinks. Let's bump it up to $10 a day for food. Okay, now $10 a day, that's really scratching by. In most cases these days in the US, it's easy to spend $10 at McDonald's. Oh, and I'll also add that even if you buy a few items at the grocery store, this $10 per day is still a good number. So now at the minimal footprint, $300 a month for rent, living no commitment, and $300 for food, that's $600 a month. So next up, your phone. Now this will literally be the lowest of your monthly expenses. I highly recommend, and this is literally what I'm doing now. Be sure to bring a phone with you, and you can get a prepaid phone plan, unlimited voice and text and we'll call it a virtually unlimited data plan. And what I mean by that is if you use a lot of data on a day, then you might get capped towards the end of that day, or at a minimum, you'll get throttled to a very slow speed. But yeah, I pay roughly $11 a month for what I just described, okay? So now we're at $600 for rent and food, and then tack on $11 a month for your phone, all right? And then we have transportation. Again, there's a lot of options from super cheap to more expensive. If you grab a motor cab or tricycle, depending on the distance, you're gonna pay, 50 cents to $1 for a one-way ride. You can also get around on jeepneys. I think those are like 10 to 15 pesos a ride, which is like 20 cents. So again, we'll just do some simple math. Let's say if you needed to make, 5 trips per day at $1 per ride, that's $2 per round trip. That would be $10 a day for 5 round trips. All right, so another $300. Okay, so realistically speaking, if you stayed in a $10 per night accommodation that includes your lights, water, and Wi-Fi, and then you spend $10 a day, another $300 a month on food, add $10 a day for transportation, then add your phone at $11 per month, that adds up to roughly $911 per month. $911 per month. Now that is scratching by, but you have the freedom to move around the country at will and live the no strings attached lifestyle. 900 bucks. Now the other scenario that does require a little bit of a commitment, yeah, you could get by on as little as $150 a month for accommodation and utilities, $300 for food, $300 for transportation, $11 for your phone, and that adds up to $761 a month. So I think it's important to mention here that we need to have at least 3 months in cash reserves. So in this case, we would want to keep about $3,000 on reserve. And this does 2 things for you. First, it gives you enough to get by for 3 months, or in a worst case scenario, $3,000 is more than enough to book a flight and get back home. I'll also mention, and it's really important to understand, that if you're coming over here on a tourist visa, you'll not be able to work for pay. And even if you could work, you're not going to want to work for what the normal wages are. So just realize that's not a backup plan. Now, I'm sure I'll get a lot of comments that dispute these numbers, and that's fine. There's definitely situations that can be found for cheaper, and it is also very easy to live more expensively. But these numbers are reasonable, and I would feel comfortable going by these numbers personally myself, knowing what I know from living here for the past almost 5 years. Okay, so with that, I'm going to wrap up this little talk. I think it's entirely doable to live on about $800 to $1,000 a month if you're open to keeping things at a bare minimum. Okay, guys, if this was informative, helpful, or even a little entertaining, please hit the thumbs up. Be sure to comment, share, and subscribe. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.